Hello, my friends. Welcome to another episode of Deep True Crime. I'm Manny Rodriguez. Thank you for joining me today. In today's episode, we're continuing the discussion of Orsolya Gaal. Don't go anywhere. Be right back. Welcome back, my friends. Thank you so much for joining me today. As I've been covering this story I shared, there's been continuous developments around this story. And so my goal is to keep you updated, as I'm sure you're following this story very closely. Now, giving you more further updates, police continue the investigation of this 51-year-old mother of two found in a Bauer hockey duffel bag deceased. And if you've been following the story, I've been covering it, but I'm going to sum it up really quick what we do know. Number one, Orsolya Gaal, 51, stabbed 58 times in the neck, torso, and arm at 12:40 in the morning of Saturday, April 16th. She had just returned from a night out with some friends at Lincoln Center in Manhattan, and we don't know if that part is a lie yet. Allegedly, she did go watch a show with some friends. So at first, it was said that maybe she didn't really go watch the show, but it looks like she did go to Lincoln Center with some friends in Manhattan to watch this show. Police have now shared that they are looking at multiple suspects, including her ex-handyman, who was also her lover. Yes, this means it is true she was having an affair. The lover has not been named yet, but it's possible that he was caught by one of the home's surveillance cameras. Electrician Juno Street, 30 years old, says he worked at the home and he knows it has an extensive security system. That has not been reported just yet. I hadn't reported on it yet. As of yesterday, we found out later on in the day yesterday. Now, NYPD is offering $3,500 reward for any information that could lead to Gaal's killer. The Hungarian native, she has been described as a loving mother and wife by neighbors in Forest Hills, Queens. Her husband, Howard Klein, was out of town with their oldest son when she died. Her youngest son, 13 years old, was in the home and he was questioned by police but released over that weekend. So, as I shared, police are investigating the murder of the 51-year-old Queens mother of two, Orsolya Gaal, and now they are looking at multiple suspects, including her handyman lover, who had access to the home. It has now been revealed. Gaal was stabbed to death in her home at 12:40 in the morning on Saturday, April 16th, after returning from a show at the Lincoln Center. She was stabbed 58 times, then her body was stuffed in a duffel bag and dragged half a mile to a sidewalk where it was dumped and discovered the next day by a man walking his dogs. Her husband, Howard Klein, and their oldest son, Jamie, 17 years old, they were out of town, and her youngest son, Leo, was at home, but on the top level of the family's house. He was questioned by police, but has not been charged. The family has not been seen since the killing. We are now finding out that the NYPD detectives are zoning in on multiple suspects, but that they believe she knew her killer. Investigators do not believe this was a planned murder, given how sloppy the crime scene was, and we'll dive into that as well. The killer left a blood trail for 5 blocks from the house. An investigator said he left a blood trail for 5 blocks from the house. It was like a trail of breadcrumbs. If you want to kill somebody, you try to make it a little cleaner, be a little more prepared. He didn't go with something to move her body. He took something from the house. I'm sure with that kind of blood, there's lots of DNA there. The killer's DNA has gotta be in that blood. It's not a clean scene, this source had said. The family's electrician, Arjuna Jack, has also revealed that the house was outfitted with an advanced camera surveillance system. So if you think about it, the ex-handyman, who was also her lover, knew where the spare key was, which also means he knows the layout of this surveillance system. So you can see why he's a person of interest that they just want to talk to. They've not named him as a suspect at all yet. The electrician, Mr. Jack, says he was often at the home carrying out electrical work, power washing, and painting. He added that the house has a separate door that leads up into the kitchen and down into the basement, which is outfitted with a laundry room and was used to be the boys' playroom. Now let me say, I've seen a lot of people on the internet say they believe it was the 13-year-old boy. Let me tell you, I don't believe that. I don't believe he had anything to do with it. I'm kind of disappointed that people just out there, well, he was the only one home, he had to have done it. Some people who try to play internet detectives, I like that, but come on, you guys are really willing to just throw anyone under the bus for any reason. I get you want to try to take everything into account, but come on, the 13-year-old son, let's give it a little bit of time before you put it on the son. 13. How is this 13-year-old boy going to be moving this body alone by himself? So I struggle. I even struggle that people are just throwing that out there so willy-nilly like that. The electrician Jack, Mr. Jack, says she's a very happy, jolly person all the time. I see her all the time jogging. They're a very beautiful, quiet family, very happy all the time. Now, Howard Klein, the husband of Orsolya Gaal. Now, notice they do have different last names. I mean, that's not so uncommon. I mean, we do see that. There's no signs of separation. Sounds like they were definitely married, not separated so far, what we are learning, right? So who is he? Well, and her husband, who is a financial advisor and owns his own firm, him and the 17-year-old son, Jamie, they were out of town visiting colleges on the West Coast at the time of the murder. Now, the 13-year-old son, Leo, as I mentioned, he was in the house at the time of the murder, and the police questioned him that Saturday when they discovered her, and he was initially escorted from the family's home in handcuffs. Sorry that you had to go with that, little buddy. Go through that. I think that was unfair, but it's sad that he had to go through that. But with the circumstances, we just found her in a bag and blood trail all the way home, and you're the only person here. I get that. It's just too bad he had to go through that. And I love to see how her friends and her neighbors, they all went to social media to share their grief and share tributes to the mother of two. One friend wrote, "I'll always remember how passionate you were about your boys and their education. I'm so sorry about how you left this world, but I would hope you find peace in the afterlife. Your boys are so lucky to have you as a mom," that person wrote. Another woman who claimed she was friends with Gaal for 15 years wrote that they were on the phone together just days ago speaking about colleges. No, my heart is broken. And as I mentioned earlier, New York Police Department, they are offering a $3,500 reward for anyone with information leading to an arrest in connection with the murder. And they left posters advertising the payout around her neighborhood, trying to get anyone to cop up some information. I would like to think they could come up with more than $3,500. This family lived in a $2 million home. Let's get some more money out there. Let's get some more motivation for people to want to say something, because $3,500, I just don't think that's going to do it. Get that thing up there. $2 million home. Come on, get that thing up there. It's my thought. Anyway, so after I posted my video yesterday, that's when I found out that they are actually looking for her handyman to question him. They have still not had the chance to question him. And after scouring her electronics, they realized, hey, her former handyman. Looks like they had a relationship. We need to find him and talk to him. And they find that he has access to a spare key. He knows where she keeps the spare key in the home. Is that spare key still there? Now, although they have not released the name of him, they have not released his name yet, the former handyman is believed to have knowledge of her home, including where she kept the spare key, including that she had high-end security system. And so at some point, the handyman had a romantic relationship with Orsolya Gaal, and this relationship ended abruptly, but it's unclear who broke it off, but it had a downfall that happened really fast. And so her body, which was found in a duffel bag at 8:11 a.m. on Saturday, this was less than half a mile from the property, and they followed a trail of blood back to the house. And due to the messy nature of the crime, police sources also doubted that it was premeditated, because they would have done a better job of cleaning it up, not causing such a messy scene. And we'll dive into that as well. But one person from law enforcement said detectives don't think it was a planned murder. He left a blood trail for 5 blocks from the house. It was like a trail of breadcrumbs. If you want to kill somebody, you try to make it look a little cleaner, be a little more prepared. He didn't go with something to move her body. He took something from the house. Now, the bag is what he took from the house. Did this bag belong to one of the kids? The handyman most likely would have known that the kids have hockey bags. And according to the law enforcement source, they said, I'm sure with that kind of blood, there's lots of DNA there. The killer's DNA has gotta be in that blood. It's not a clean scene. Howard Klein, he's the founder of the firm RK Equity, and he apparently received a foreboding text before his wife was killed. And it said, your wife sent me to jail some years ago when you were living near Austin Street in Forest Hills. I'm back. Don't call the police or I will kill your family. Now, of course, NYPD, they're refusing to answer questions about the ongoing investigation. That's why I keep sharing whatever little bits of pieces of information that we continue to get. Her body is believed to have been taken out of the home through a side door and dragged in a duffel bag before being dumped on a sidewalk next to a busy road. And now, another update around this. The fugitive killer who viciously stabbed Queen's mom, Orsolya Gaal, to death inside her Forest Hills home left behind a vital clue. A pair of blood-soaked boots. So police are now running DNA tests on the boots, which cops found in a trash can outside the garage of this Tudor-style home where Gaal was stabbed nearly 60 times. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the handyman who did work at the Juno Street home and whose sources said had a fling with Gaal, he's still being sought for questioning. But cops have not yet publicly identified any person of interest or a suspect in the case. Now, police have said that they believe Gaal was followed home by her killer, who, after murdering her, stuffed her in a duffel bag and dumped her body less than a mile from her home. And you can see by this grainy video from a neighborhood doorbell that caught this mysterious figure lugging the bloody duffel bag away from the Gaal home around 4:30 in the morning. A local resident walking his dog found the remains about 4 hours later. This sloppy crime scene, it definitely suggests that this was an unplanned planned attack. You know, and if you follow Nancy Grace, Crime Online's Nancy Grace, she shared her thoughts on this. And when she was speaking with Fox Digital, and she said that the killer was an amateur who was likely familiar with Gaal's home and left blood dripping out of the duffel bag as he was walking to dispose of it. She said, "It left a blood trail. This is an amateur who was on foot, I might add, which I find very odd. This is very unusual." She continued, "The killer had access to the home. This killer was on foot. Also, no alarm was set off, and I'd like to point out that if this guy, the killer, was caught at 4:30 in the morning on one Ring camera, there are gonna be others." Looking at her last movements, as I mentioned before, now I want to show you a picture of her backyard. You see, her last movements, her neighbor said he saw her in the backyard at her Forest Hills residence before she head out to watch a show at Lincoln Center. After the show, when she went back to Queens, she waited 40 minutes at a neighborhood bar before returning home. Police believe that the killer murdered her in her living room, then brought her body to the basement. Now, police are looking into Gaal's relationships with several men, not just the handyman. The handyman is who they have proof that she had an affair with, but they probably have more proof that there's other men that she had affairs with as well. So we're only going to be finding out more as this continues. But New York newspapers even say detectives are particularly interested in a former handyman who may have had a romantic relationship with her that went sour. Now, according to sources, detectives didn't have enough evidence to call the man a suspect, but they are searching for him. Why hasn't he just voluntarily go talk to the police, right? Unless he's hiding from something. Or maybe he hasn't been seen from anyone in a little while, but they saw her say on the phone and said, okay, we need to talk to this guy, and he could be clueless. Maybe he's heartbroken and went somewhere. I don't know. There's so many different things, right? And when you think about this messy crime scene that left DNA all over it, you know, considering that anyone in New York State convicted of a misdemeanor or felony was required to provide a DNA sample for inclusion in the New York State DNA databank. If her killer had committed a crime since 2012 and being from New York, should be easy to catch this guy. As we've heard, after the show at Lincoln Center Friday night, she attended a show Friday night at Lincoln Center. After, she spent about 45 minutes waiting at a bar for someone who did not show up. The most latest update that has come out today, it looks like it was the Forest Hills Station House. And a bartender who was there shared that she was there. She ordered her usual drink at the Forest Hills Station House, and she didn't seem frightened or scared. She had one drink before she left, according to the bartender. The bartender said Gaal was a composed, classy, sweet lady. She was a regular at the bar. Gaal always came in alone. She had one or two Moscow mules. That's a drink. And here's a little word from the owner of the bar who said he wasn't there when she did arrive, but notice his time frame.
Very classy woman, super sweet, beautiful.
Gabe Veras recounts what may have been some of the last moments of Orsolya Gaal's life. He is the manager at the Forest Hill Station House. He wasn't working, but says employees at the restaurant saw the 51-year-old Queen's mother at the bar on Friday night. Video shows the same thing.
Orsolya was indeed here Friday around 11:45 to about 12:30. That's all we know. She came in alone. She left alone. She had her usual Moscow mule.
Veras says Gaal was a regular, often coming alone. He says he spoke to her last Tuesday.
She had just come back from a show seeing her favorite composer. She was delighted at that. She was super elated at the fact that she was able to see this composer live. You know, she's very into the arts, very into music.
So there you have it. You hear from someone that knew her and remembers what she drinks, knows her You can tell he was pretty sad about it as well. I mean, this is a very sad case. Very terrible, terrible story. And so she was at this local bar. This was the bar that she was at by herself before she was killed. So detectives, they believe that maybe she was followed home. So again, we'll find out more as we continue to hear about this tragic story of Orsolya Gaal. My friends, I'm Manny Rodriguez. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you got some value, and hey, make sure you smash that subscribe button. That way, whenever I upload more content around this, you'll get notified. Thank you so much for joining me. Have an amazing, amazing day. Peace.